She was the girl who wouldn't even approach a stranger's car. So how did someone get her to walk away from her bus stop? And why did it take 43 years to find out who? Sherry Jo Elliott was a 16-year-old girl growing up in Flint, Michigan in the early 1980s. She was shy, cautious, and meticulous about her appearance. Sherry would never leave the house without everything matching and every hair in place. She was the kind of girl who wouldn't approach a stranger's car, even when her friend did. Her mother, Joyce Schultz, described her as a sweetheart who loved to color for hours as a toddler and remained disciplined throughout her childhood. Sherry had a daily routine after school. She would come home, do her nails, watch The Young and the Restless, and eat the frozen yogurt her mother prepared for her. She was a normal teenager with a normal life, loved by her family and especially close to her mother. Her shyness was not just a personality trait, it was a survival instinct that would make what happened to her all the more confusing. Sherry would never get into a car with someone she didn't know. But on November 18th, 1983, someone took her anyway. November 18th, 1983, started like any other Friday morning for Sherry Jo Elliott. She was getting ready for school, following her usual routine. Her mother, Joyce, had warned her that morning to dress warmly because she had to walk 2 blocks to the bus stop. Sherry had even wanted to leave early that day, but Joyce told her no, explaining it wasn't safe. Joyce remembers telling her daughter that she didn't want police knocking on her door to say Sherry had been murdered or raped. It was a mother's worst fear spoken aloud. That morning, Sherry said, "Okay, love you," and walked out the door. She was walking to the school bus, but she never made it. When Joyce went to work and her husband Bob went to work, they had no idea their world was about to shatter. Sherry always came home after school, but that afternoon she didn't. Joyce's husband came to her workplace around noon and told her Sherry hadn't come home. The daily routine was broken and the nightmare had begun. When Joyce and Bob realized Sherry was missing, they called the police immediately, but the response was not what they expected. The police told them Sherry was a teenager and had probably run away. Joyce insisted that wasn't possible. There was nothing missing from Sherry's room. She would never leave with just the clothes on her back. Joyce knew her daughter better than anyone, but the police said they would have to wait 2 days before taking it seriously, treating the case as a runaway. Joyce and her family started handing out flyers and searching the area themselves. They looked through dumpsters and alleys. They contacted everyone Sherry knew. Joyce packed her things, came to Flint, and got a motel room with her family. They posted flyers everywhere. Joyce couldn't eat. She lost 10 pounds that week because every time she went to a restaurant, she wondered if Sherry was eating. The family searched tirelessly, but days passed with no word. On November 20th, 1983, just 2 days after Sherry disappeared, a local trapper was checking his traps along Muller Road, about 15 miles north of Flint in Saginaw County. He made a horrific discovery. Sherry Jo Elliott's body was found face down in a watery ditch. She had been shot 4 times, once in the abdomen, twice in the back, and once in the back of the head. The shot to the back of the head was execution style. Her pants were unbuckled, suggesting sexual assault. The crime scene was sparse. Her body was just off the roadway, pushed into the ditch. The police didn't find a bullet or much else. The only evidence was the clothes on her back and whatever was on her body. A detective arrived at Joyce's door early Sunday morning with Sherry's necklace in his hand. He asked if it belonged to Sherry. Joyce said yes. Then he told her Sherry was dead. She had been shot 4 times and raped. There was no easy way to say that. Sherry was Joyce's only daughter. The autopsy revealed the full horror of what Sherry endured. She was shot 4 times total, 1 to the abdomen, 2 to the back, and 1 to the back of the head. But the most devastating revelation came after the autopsy. Sherry had not died immediately. She was thrown into that ditch alive. She lived in the ditch for hours, bleeding out slowly, half covered in cold water, until she finally died from lack of blood. The bullet to the back of her head was an execution shot, but the other wounds caused her to bleed to death over time. She was alive while her killer walked away. Because her pants were undone, investigators conducted a sexual assault kit. They collected her clothing and undergarments. They clipped her fingernails and took swabs. In 1983, DNA testing was in its infancy. It wasn't the powerful tool it is today. The evidence was collected and stored. but it couldn't be used to find a suspect. The investigators hoped that someday technology would catch up. But for now, all they had was a brutal crime scene and a grieving family. Sherry's funeral was attended by family, friends, and community members. The family had a friend watch everyone who came in, looking for anyone suspicious. The family had heard that killers sometimes show up at the funeral to take pride in what they did. At the funeral, Joyce spotted a man she didn't recognize. She asked her sister if she knew him. She didn't. It turned out he was a long-lost cousin. The community of Flint was outraged by the crime. Flint was a General Motors town in the 1980s. People were making money and crime was relatively low. When a 16-year-old girl was found murdered, the community demanded answers. Crime Stoppers got involved and put out a reward. Tips poured in by the thousands. Someone said they saw Sherry get into a white van. Someone else said a yellow Camaro. Investigators ran down every lead, but eyewitness testimony was unreliable. One person who claimed to see Sherry get into a yellow Camaro was later found to be lying. Why he lied, no one knows. He had a daughter too, but his lie wasted valuable time and resources. In any murder investigation, police look at those closest to the victim first. In this case, Sherry's stepfather, Bob, became a prime suspect. He was the last person to see Sherry alive. The investigators tried to interview him formally. They found inconsistencies in his story. He refused to take a requested polygraph test. The police tried a surreptitious phone call. They allowed Joyce to call Bob while detectives listened, hoping he would confess. Nothing came of it. Joyce defended her husband, insisting he would never hurt any child. She knew him, and she knew he was innocent. But the police put him through hell. They collected his DNA and ran tests. They asked Joyce what she would do if she found out he murdered her daughter, a question that haunted her. Eventually, Bob was eliminated as a suspect, but an innocent man had been subjected to intense scrutiny and suspicion. The case went cold. Detective after detective worked on it over the years. In total, 123 DNA samples were collected from various suspects. None of them matched. Ronnie Collins was the last person anyone would suspect. By all accounts, he was a good citizen. He had no significant criminal history. He was a good family man with a good job. He worked as a dental hygienist at a Michigan prison, ironically, a job that would have made him acutely aware of what awaited him if he was caught. He was in a band and traveled around Michigan playing music. He drove a white van to transport his equipment and bandmates. In 1983, a tip had mentioned a white van, but it was one of thousands of tips that led nowhere. Collins was living his life, hiding his secret for more than 4 decades. He married. He lived a normal life. His friends and family had no idea about the monster lurking beneath the surface. He was the kind of person who could get away with murder for 40 years because he was able to hide the fact that he was this monster. He was right next to everyone, in plain sight, a respected member of society. In February 2025, a piece of evidence from Sherry's case was sent to Othram, a forensic genetic genealogy company. The evidence contained semen DNA from a sanitary napkin Sherry was wearing the day she was abducted. Othram used forensic-grade genome sequencing to create a DNA profile consisting of hundreds of thousands of markers. They conducted a genetic genealogy search and discovered relatives of the unknown suspect. The search led to a lady in Wichita, Kansas, who was a relative. She had 79 grandchildren. Investigators flew to Kansas, interviewed her, and obtained her DNA and her son's DNA. The genetic genealogy narrowed the search to a candidate, Ronnie Collins. Investigators tried to interview him. He put them off. When they finally got a search warrant for his DNA, they went to his house. His wife told them that on the day the interview was supposed to happen, Ronnie Collins committed suicide. His DNA was collected from his autopsy and confirmed beyond doubt. He was the man who raped and murdered Sherry Jo Elliott. The confirmation brought some closure to the family, but also more pain. Joyce learned that Sherry was alive when thrown in the ditch. She bled to death over hours. The family also realized Collins had been hiding in plain sight for 43 years. He got to live a full life while Sherry didn't. Joyce posted on his obituary that he was a murderer, but the comments flooded in defending him. The family wishes Joyce's husband Bob had lived to see the truth. He was put through hell by the investigation and died in January 2025. But investigators still have questions. There are two girls who went missing in Oscoda, Michigan in 1969, Hobley and Spencer. They were last seen getting into a white van on Halloween. Ronnie Collins played a band on that weekend.